Hi, I'm Maggie. Welcome to Experiments in Crafting. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Crochet Stitches Visual Encyclopedia. This encyclopedia has 300 different stitches, so let's jump in and see what we think. Alright, to get started, this book has a table of contents, but it doesn't have pictures of every stitch. There's just a representative stitch for some of the sections. So you can see there's a few pictures here and there, but there isn't a whole layout of every stitch in the book. It starts off with the most basic of stitches. This is pretty unique in that I have not seen any of the other crochet stitch dictionaries show slip stitch fabric. So that's a little bit different. So this one starts off with slip stitches instead of starting at single crochet. And as you go through, there are just tons and tons of stitches. Each of the stitches has written instructions, a picture, and a chart. Underneath the name of the stitch, they've included a little description of what you might like to do with the pattern. So this one says that you can add a little pop of texture. Other ones indicate that it might work well for a hat or make a cozy sweater. So there's lots of design tips. So if you're trying to get started with designing your own pattern, these little tips and guides might help. On some of the pages, there are these red boxes that are additional tips for a pattern. So it might tell you how to modify it or to add some texture so that you're not working just the same stitch over and over again. So as you go through here, one of the things that I noticed was that some of the pictures are not taken at the same distance, I guess is the best way to describe it. So some of these patterns show a whole bunch of repeats, where others are zoomed in closer and you can see more of the stitch texture and more of the definition. So in this stitch, it's zoomed in a little bit closer and you can see the texture of the stitches more clearly, whereas this, you're really getting a feel for the whole fabric rather than the individual stitches. And so that's a little bit inconsistent throughout the book. Just some of the stitches are zoomed in, some of them are not. There are a couple of sections where the stitches are a little bit harder to see because of the colors they chose, but I don't think any of them are terrible. For the most part, you can see the stitches and make out what's going on. There's just some pictures that are better than others. When you get into the lacier sections, they've switched to using what looks like either a thinner yarn or even thread. And so the stitch definition goes way up and the pattern is a lot easier to see. And in most of the cases, they've zoomed out a little bit and you can sort of see the whole fabric. Each of the stitches also contains a chart. The charts show a number of repeats, but they also have a single repeat highlighted in a gray box. So if you're trying to design, sometimes it's difficult to sort of tell where the repeat starts and stops, so that you can find a way to make increases or decreases for shaping a pattern. So these charts are nice because they highlight that repeat, so you can sort of figure out how to make your pattern around that. Even in some of these larger charts and bigger patterns, they've drawn out the whole pattern, but then highlighted the repeat. And again, we see the tips on the pages and detailed written patterns. These written patterns are not for the newest crocheter. They don't indicate to yarn over or draw up a loop. They just say double crochet, single crochet. They're written in a very concise manner. This book also contains Tunisian patterns. find them. Here's some basic Tunisian stitches, and then some more interesting ones. As you get into the book, you'll notice that they've included some multicolor stitch patterns. So these rely on there being more than one color to make the pattern show up. There are also square and hexagon motifs. So if you wanted to design a granny square blanket or something like that, there's options in here. Some hexagon patterns, some snowflakes. They've also included a number of flower patterns. So as you get in here, there's a number of different flowers that you can use for embellishing projects or for making motif scarves. They've included edging patterns. One of the nice things, I think, is that they've shown the corners in all of the edges. Sometimes I see edging patterns that just show a straight section, and they don't give you an idea of how you're going to turn the corner or how it's going to look around the corner. So I do like that they've shown the corner of each of the edges in all of their pictures and in all of their charts. I think this book is a really good option for a pattern designer. It has a huge variety of different techniques. It's got basic crochet stitches. It's got motifs. It's got Tunisian. There's lots of tips. The pictures are a little bit small and a little bit inconsistent, but they're still pretty good. The charts are clear and show the repeats. The only thing it's really lacking is that it doesn't have that many crochet stitches. And I say that because there are big sections devoted to the motifs, the flowers, the Tunisian, and those really start to bite into those 300 stitches. So if you're looking for just a book full of crochet stitches and stitch patterns, this one's going to fall short a little bit on that. But if you're looking for an all-over type of book, you just want to start designing and you are flexible with whether you're going to be making crochet patterns versus joined motifs versus Tunisian patterns, this, I think, would be a really good option for that. I'll put a link in the description to where you can buy this book. I picked this copy up at my library so that I could look through it before I decided on which books I wanted to buy. I'm going to be reviewing the rest of these books, so make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss any of them. Thanks for watching.